Space has always fascinated us, right? We're constantly looking up at that infinite void, wondering what exactly is out there. But what if I told you the most formidable, uncharted frontier wasn't actually above us at all? What if it's hiding literally right beneath our feet, down in our own oceans? Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're breaking down one of the internet's absolute darkest, most persistent mysteries. It's this viral theory going around that suggests NASA, the agency famous for exploring the stars, actually discovered something massive hidden deep underwater and then just quietly, without a single word, completely stopped their deep-sea exploration. Since we're all science enthusiasts here, we're going to look at exactly what the sources say, separate the wild internet fiction from the hard biological and physical facts, and figure out what's really going on down in the dark. So, the whole rumor mill starts with this one burning question. What did NASA actually find in the deep ocean? According to the theories constantly floating around online, during some deep-sea sonar scans, these incredibly strange acoustic readings started appearing way, way below the known zones of exploration. We are talking about claims of massive moving objects, impossibly huge sonar shadows, and things moving at speeds that honestly shouldn't even be possible at those extreme depths. And then, according to the internet lore anyway, certain underwater missions were just abruptly canceled. No official explanation given, no public discussion to clear the air. Just absolute silence. And hey, naturally, when a massive government space agency goes dead silent on an ocean project, the internet immediately assumes they bumped into something huge and unknown. But to actually understand what really happened, we have to look at the harsh reality of the environment they were dealing with. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we are dealing with. 80%. As a species, we've successfully explored space, we've put humans on the moon, we've even got these complex rovers driving around on the surface of Mars right now. But our own ocean? Over 80% of it remains completely unexplored. Seriously, think about that for a second. We literally know more about the topography of our celestial neighbors in space than we do about the seafloor right here on our own planet. The ocean isn't just a big pool of salt water, It's a vast, incredibly complex, almost alien world right under us, packed with geological wonders and extreme conditions that totally push the boundaries of what we even consider habitable. Which brings us to Section 1, the true hostility below. Let's take a look at why the ocean is actually, surprisingly, way harder to explore than outer space. When you look at the empirical realities of trying to map the ocean, you quickly realize it's an absolute topographical nightmare. Navigating down there means trying to move around these massive, jagged geological formations. You've got oceanic trenches that plunge deeper into the earth than we can even wrap our heads around, and underwater mountains that totally dwarf Mount Everest. But the truly terrifying reality of the descent, that kicks in around 1,000 meters down, right as we enter what's called the bathypelagic zone. Here, a major threshold is crossed. Sunlight completely fails to penetrate the water. It's gone. There's practically no sound as we understand it on the surface. There is literally just endless, absolute darkness. Any exploration done past this point relies entirely on artificial lighting and acoustic sonar. You are, for all intents and purposes, flying completely blind in a pitch-black, totally alien universe. And you know what? The absolute darkness is really just the beginning of your problems. The deep ocean is definitively one of the most dangerous places on Earth, strictly because of the intense physical barriers. First up, hydrostatic pressure. Down there, the pressure can easily exceed 1,000 atmospheres. To put that into perspective, that is enough sheer weight to instantly crush a state-of-the-art submarine if there's even a microscopic, tiny flaw in the hull. On top of that, communication becomes exceptionally difficult. Standard radio waves barely even function underwater, which basically means you're entirely cut off from the surface. And because of these extreme physical realities, if something goes wrong down there, there is almost no chance of rescue. It's an environment completely hostile to human survival, pushing our engineering and our physics to their absolute breaking points. Moving on to Section 2, space science in the deep. So, what actually was NASA's true underwater mission? Now, you might be asking yourself, why on earth was a space agency out there conducting deep-sea operations far below known exploration zones in the first place? I mean, most people just assume NASA only looks up, right? Well, years ago, NASA actually partnered up with marine scientists to plunge into these extreme underwater environments. And their reasoning absolutely wasn't to go hunting for mythical sea monsters. As the source material explicitly notes, they wanted to understand how humans survive in extreme conditions: isolation, pressure, darkness. See, NASA recognized that the deep ocean serves as the ultimate, highly accessible analog for outer space. If you want to figure out how astronauts are going to handle the intense psychological and physical strain of a deep space mission, well, you put them at the bottom of the ocean. It is literally the perfect earthly testing ground for extreme condition survival.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Internet Fiction versus Scientific Fact. It's time to actually deconstruct these so-called anomalies.
So, the crucial point here is how we interpret the signals that sparked these wild rumors in the first place. During some of those deep-sea sonar scans, anomalous readings reportedly did appear. Massive objects, huge sonar shadows moving at incredible speeds. Now, on one hand, we have the internet's absolute favorite theory, a giant, ancient sea creature. But let's look at the actual scientific reality here: equipment malfunction. When you push acoustic sonar to the absolute bleeding edges of physics, dealing with drastic temperature changes across thermoclines, extreme hydrostatic pressure, and weird acoustic refraction, ghost signals and hardware failures aren't just a possibility. They're actually the expected statistical outcome. In fact, we see this exact same dynamic play out with another really famous acoustic anomaly. Take the bloop. Maybe you've heard of it. It was this massive, incredibly powerful underwater sound recorded years ago that was so loud, scientists initially just couldn't explain it. Of course, mystery hunters immediately jumped on it and claimed it was some giant ancient life form hiding in a deep ocean trench. But the actual scientific consensus that emerged later on was far more grounded in reality, though honestly still equally awe-inspiring. Researchers determined the sound was actually perfectly consistent with massive ice movements, specifically ice quakes, huge, massive icebergs cracking and breaking away from glaciers. It's a brilliant example of how a very real, immensely powerful natural phenomenon can easily be misconstrued as a biological monster, at least until the hard science catches up. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Real Aliens of the Abyss. These are the actual biological marvels we've found. Because honestly, guys, we don't need to invent wild internet fictions to find totally incredible things down in the ocean. Look, there is zero public evidence that NASA ever found a giant sea creature, but every single year, marine biologists make actual discoveries that are just as mind-blowing. Because of that total pitch-black darkness and extreme pressure we talked about, evolution has taken some bizarre, wild paths down there. We routinely find creatures with completely transparent bodies, which basically allows them to just blend into the nothingness. We see bioluminescence all the time, where animals literally create their own chemical light, glowing right there in the complete darkness to attract prey or communicate. And yes, for sure, a lot of them have truly terrifying, alien-like appearances. But these aren't mythical monsters. They are absolute masterclasses in extreme evolutionary adaptation, surviving and thriving in Earth's most hostile biome. Which leaves us with this final burning question: what could still be hiding in the unexplored depths? The boring truth is NASA got the analog testing data they needed and naturally just moved on to other projects. But considering that 80% of this massive, high-pressure world is still completely untouched, well, if glowing, alien-like extremophiles are what we've discovered in just the 20% of the ocean we have seen, imagine what incredible evolutionary marvels are just waiting out there in the dark that we haven't found yet. Because sometimes, the most thrilling scientific frontiers aren't actually out there in outer space. They're right here, waiting for us, on Earth.